Hey everyone, welcome to Past Lives and the Divine. I'm Gina, the host of this podcast, and today I'm talking about what my hypnosis training did not prepare me for. I have Sarah Leverett here, and we're both going to answer that question, and then we're going to tell you a little bit about our hypnosis training called the Hypnotic Arts Training. You can find out more about it at the hypnoticartstraining.com, also linked in the show notes. Our Hypnotic Arts Training focuses on helping you understand your own intuition. We believe this is the key to a session where every client goes somewhere and gets something, is if the facilitator is following their intuition. When the facilitator or you follow your intuition in the facilitator role, it's perfect when you're blending your interests, your skills, your natural gifts, and your intuition to create the perfect session for your client. That is what we're going to teach you to do. You can learn more about our philosophy on our website. You can learn more about the different training topics and the percentages, how much you're learning, the types of learning. We also today are really going to go into the foundation, the exploration, and the vocation, 3 phases of our hypnotic arts training. Very soon, Sarah Leverett and I will be doing a live Q&A about the hypnotic arts training. Registration will begin sometime at the end of January, and you can find more of this information, specific dates, and links in the show notes. Sarah Leverett has been on the podcast many times before, but if you're new here, she is the creatrix of intuitive empowerment. She has a background in education and nonprofit. Currently, she's a hypnotist, intuitive, she's a mentor and a writer who loves to explore the intersection of spirituality and practicality. And you can find Sarah's links in the show notes. Okay, gather around the fire for my conversation with Sarah Leverett about our hypnotic arts training. Sarah, when you got out of hypnosis training, what did you feel very unprepared for?
Yeah, so number one, it all happened so quickly. Like we definitely went deep really fast in a short amount of time. So I think the biggest thing that I was missing is just integration time to let things settle, time to like practice and come back with questions. And that makes me think about the first session I had that wasn't like a fellow hypnotist or a friend or a practice client, like my very first paying client. They came to me and had a very rigid idea of exactly what a past life regression should be, exactly where they should go, exactly how it should happen. Because a lot of books out there about past life regression, like Journey of Souls, it does have that very clear structure. And so people are coming to you as a past life regressionist expecting a certain thing. And I felt prepared going into it. And then I just kept hitting a wall with the client. And it wasn't that I didn't feel like I was doing my job as the hypnotist or using the techniques I knew to use. It was more about their lack of confidence in themselves and where they were going and how to navigate trusting, intuition. And now, with a couple of years under my belt, I can have that conversation with my clients about like letting go of expectations, letting go of that rigidity and asking questions on the front end. But I took all of that doubt that they were feeling inward. And I didn't fully know about how my intuition was working, how my empathy was working. And so I got completely emotionally and energetically zapped from that session. It was visceral, the way that I was like carrying all of this person's disappointment in themselves. And I could clearly feel like this isn't mine, but I just didn't know how to handle that and what to do with it at the time. And I remember I just like booked it out of my house, got my feet on the ground, and that was all just like an intuitive thing. But it would have been really helpful to I don't know, like be in the middle of that like integration time, have resources, and like had talked about energetic protection and expecting those types of things to happen in sessions. Because looking at the session, it was like they were getting past life scenes, they did meet a spirit guide, but it just wasn't happening the way they thought that it should happen. And I took every bit of that on as a new hypnotist. And it's been a process, like learning how to navigate my intuition, my empathy, and like separating myself and not carrying that all the time. But I know, many new hypnotists struggle with that as well.
Wow, Sarah, I'm so glad I asked you that question, because that is not something that we've ever talked about. It makes sense. We've talked about it because it's in our training, but I never thought of it as like, I don't know, just the way you phrased it. I can see so much of that in my own story, I guess. And I'm seeing it like for the first time, like through that lens, which is like, yeah, totally. Yeah, for me, so in 2018, I have been an entrepreneur online since 2009. So when I came out, I already knew how to do like the website, the shop, booking clients, all of that stuff. But what I didn't know was like insurance, state laws. Do I need to be licensed, certified, blah, blah, like what kind of language can I use? For example, I'm a certified hypnotherapist, but in Minnesota, where I spent 99% of my career, I could be like legally taken action against if I called myself a therapist without being a licensed therapist, including calling myself a hypnotherapist. So I really only knew like, go check it out. But I do remember seeing the people who were in my training. All of them, to my knowledge, are not using hypnosis currently. They all loved it. They were all excited to do it, but it was a lot of like, couldn't get the website up and running. Didn't know how to see clients. Didn't know, being an entrepreneur, like keeping yourself on task, managing a schedule, reaching out to connect with someone else's schedule, like all exchanging money, all of that stuff. It's like, it's a whole thing to learn. And so a lot of it I knew from previous experience, but in terms of wellness and like wellness law or hypnosis and hypnosis laws and legalities and all the things, client rights, I didn't know any of that. So I felt really, really, frankly, overwhelmed, because I was like, well, like I am just not great at that stuff. So even not even knowing exactly where to look was really difficult, because every state is different and these things change all the time. So I would say that was the biggest thing. And I'm just someone who, as I learn, obviously with past lives in the divine, I like to fucking talk about it, but I also love to teach other people what I've done and what I know. And I feel like, being someone who's just like aware, I'm pretty productive when I do work. I've had a lot of hypnosis training. I've had a lot of online business experience. And so I always knew that I was like, this training that I got in hypnosis was great, really taught me the foundations of like what we're doing in this hypnosis and regression space. But yeah, moving forward, I really, really need people. And I want to help people like do even more with it, explore more with it, and actually take their dreams and like use it and not just kind of forget about it. So that was really, really important.
I just want to
Yeah.
you in the spotlight here for a second, because you went on that journey, because you figured it out for yourself. Little baby hypnotist me, luckily I was already in your orbit, listening to Past Lives in the Divine, seeing your work on Instagram, right? I'm in that same exact position. And I'm like, holy crap, we spent maybe a couple hours on policies and websites and all the things. But like, I was that person in that position of like, this is so much to figure out. And so, yeah, like being able to reach out to you for mentorship was a savior for me. And now looking back, it like feels like a really solid stepping stone for my practice. And now for us in this training that happened. And so thank you for blazing that path and, being at the forefront of that and figuring it out and not just, letting that dream fade away because of the logistics. Thank you for doing that work.
Oh my God, Sarah, you're so welcome. Yeah. And I would say like, I had these dreams and I had this dream for a while, and it was always like, I just did everything alone always. And I was like, I don't want to do this one alone. Like, I want to bring someone on who can help me, but I wasn't ever like actively looking. And Sarah, when you reached out to me, remember when you reached out and you were like, do you want to mentor me? And I responded back and was like, what do you think? What do you think we'd talk about? Essentially, it was like, what could I possibly teach you? You having that grace for me and like being like, I want to learn this and this and that, and having those conversations, first of all, not only showed me like this might be someone I could partner with, but also it really gave me a foundation of like, okay, yes, I actually have covered ground. Sometimes when we're like learning and growing, it can feel like we're going so fucking slow. And we don't really know how far we've gone until we encounter someone who's like, wait, what are you doing? And we're like, oh, I do know something. So that was really, really impactful. And I would say a solid stepping stone, like on my journey on that. So yeah, that was something. And we just kind of always worked together on and off. And if you're a listener of Past Lives and the Divine, Sarah's been, how many years have you been coming on this podcast? I don't even know, 2 or 3, 2 for sure, but maybe even 3. But yeah, it's just been a really, really good mix. Something that I saw in Sarah that I wanted to partner with was just her slow, calm ease, which I know you all feel when you hear her voice. And that is something that just like really grounds me, and frankly grounds me in a way where it's like, this is fun, let's do it together, as opposed to like grounding me in a way where it's like, fuck, this is going to be a grind, it's just a really, really good collaboration in terms of the things in my rearview mirror and the skill sets I have, and then just your background in teaching and academia and all of that stuff. I think is just brings it, and of course, like both our experience in hypnosis just really brings it together. And yeah, so let's just a little bit of a background. So that was September of 2021. We kind of made the commitment of like, all right, let's work on this together. And then May of 2022 is when we kicked off the orientation, or June of 2022 for our first cohort. And they went through it over the course of 4 months. So we have 4 classes a month, and for 4 months, and just move through it. And Sarah, like you brought up, of just like, for a week-long training, for example, that's what I did, was a bunch of week-long trainings. It's intense, it's beautiful, but yeah, to integrate it, practice it, come back with questions, know that you have all this time to practice, and it's not just like wham, bam, done, now do everything now. All of that stuff makes such a big difference. And so we were able to bring those people through the first cohort, got feedback, tightened up the schedule a little bit, and it's just easeful and so much fun. So we're going to share just a little bit about the training itself. The way we put it together, there was so much that Sarah and I wanted to bring into this training individually. And so the way we kind of boiled it down was to put it into 3 different categories. So the training really has a phase, which we call like foundation. And then there's phase 2, which is exploration. And then there's phase 3, which is vocation. So even though I list them as phase 1, 2, 3, they're all kind of weaved in together. And the foundations is really, it's the background of knowledge. So you can like blast off into, what do you want to do with hypnosis? What works for your interests, for your intuition, for your life, what your current job is, whatever it is. And Sarah, tell us a little bit more about, like, in the vein of foundations in this training, what are we teaching them?
Yeah. So First, about 10% of our foundation is just in the history of the modality and the clinical use of hypnosis. And then we go into looking at scripts, writing scripts. We give a foundation in intuition and empathy. We go over past life regression techniques, and that's really the bulk of the foundation that we give is in this past life regression modality. But we also give a solid foundation in navigating spirit sessions. And since you're here on the podcast, you've also heard Gina talk about life between lives. So we chat about that modality as well. But we also go a bit further than your typical training, and we give a foundation in shadow work, working with entities and entity removals. And we also give a really nice jumping off point for working as an entrepreneur and in your own business. So then weaved into that foundation of knowledge, we also are giving plenty of time to explore. And so what that looks like is, swapping sessions with your fellow classmates, swapping sessions with friends and family, doing research, listening to podcasts. We have a really comprehensive book list that you can pull from. And then we have a really fun exploration project as well, where you kind of take all of that exploring that you're doing both inside and outside of class, and you get to step into teacher mode, and share, what you've explored with the rest of the group. And everything that we do is low pressure, low stakes. So I can kind of already anticipate that some people hear like, oh no, I have to present something. And then it's like nervousness and all that. But I promise you that it's very safe. Like, our community is one of the best parts of this program. So never any need for pressure in that regard. But then the vocation part is taking that foundation that Gina so brilliantly provides with business and kind of making it your own, taking those skills. And most of our students walked away with a website. Most of our students walked away with a scheduling platform, had resources for policies and that sort of thing as well. Many of them even walked away with podcast ideas. So similar to the exploration project, there's also this like vocation niche project where you get to decide, like, I've done all this learning, all this exploring. Now, what do I want to do with it in a very practical way?
Yeah. Yes. That's one of the things that is also weaved into it. And what I think of as a big part of the exploration is like the exploring within, getting to know yourself, your intuition, and really making this your own. We named it the Hypnotic Arts Training, Hypnotic Arts, because both Sarah and I really believe that hypnosis is an art form. Healing is an art form. There is no one way to do it. And I'm someone who I love to ask questions. And when I have a client in trance and I'm like, I don't know, whatever, really in my intuition while they're in trance, it's easy for me to think of like really, quote, good questions. But here's the thing is like, I'm just following my intuition. And that's what makes every facilitator unique and powerful. And that is like their special essence in this whole universe. And we really teach you how to do that. And that's a big part of that exploration. And that's why it's really important that we both wanted that, for people to be able to kind of like really take this and make it their own. And how do you do that? By getting to know yourself and following your intuition. So that's a big part of that exploration weaved in that I wanted to mention.
I want to point out one more thing that I think makes our training very unique. So in addition to the independent research and exploring you're doing, the whole group stuff we're doing in Zoom, the partner work and the small group work, you're also getting one-on-one coaching. And I think that that is very unique and very valuable. So if you're someone that works better in like a one-on-one setting with your questions, if you're looking for something that's personalized and individual for you, you also get that in this training as well. And you get 3 coaching sessions, one in the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end. So I think that that's another layer of support that's worth pointing out.
Yes, I'm so glad you pointed that out. And we also have a WhatsApp group. So able to share those sorts of things too, questions that come up in between class time, and just to really help with that integration and practice and being with it. Like I always tell the hypnotic arts students, like the past life regression and the hypnosis sessions that you do in training, like, or not within the training, but outside of class on your own time. Those are probably going to be with like friends and family. And I just think for me personally, those are the worst, hardest sessions as a facilitator. And so speaking of the community and the support, that's something else I really like about the length of the training is like, we have those conversations about like, oh, like, oh, I was doing it with my mom and it didn't really work. And we can all say like, yeah, it doesn't really work with family members for me. Or someone might say, oh, it worked great for me. Here's what I tried. So it's kind of a nice way to go through like the first awkward, like maiden voyages through these sessions as you become a facilitator. So yeah, like Sarah said, a few came out with podcasts and websites. A lot came out with websites, or everyone came out with a website. But that's something too, is just being more connected to who you are and what you want, in addition to like how you're showing up in the world, and just being able to really hone your craft too in that really supportive community. Yeah. Okay. So that all takes place, like we said, over the course of 4 months, 16 classes, live replays. Sarah, when you were thinking about when you signed on and you were like, all right, we're going to create this training together, what was really, really important? Like, what were you thinking? If I'm going to stamp my name on this training better have X. Like, what was really important to you?
Yeah. So with my business being intuitive empowerment, and my mission with that being to guide others back to their inner sovereignty, their intuition, their inner guide, that power that comes from within, I knew that it wouldn't be true to me and my work without that being a piece of this training. And just encouraging our students to even follow their intuition if it's not what you and I are suggesting. You know what I mean? Like, just because my intuition says maybe try this technique, or your intuition says maybe don't try this technique, like encouraging our students over and over and over again that what their intuition is guiding them to do is always going to be best for themselves and for their clients. And just giving them really solid tools on how to develop intuition, where intuition shows up as a hypnotist, starting with themselves, but hopefully that expands and that ripples, and anyone that they come into contact with as a hypnotist, they're encouraging their clients, their friends, to do the same thing, and to take the structure that the hypnotists before us have created and really take that and make it the art that you were talking about. And letting go of that old paradigm of this is the right way, this is the only way, this is the structure, and completely turning that on its head, and, bringing this more divine feminine element. And as we evolve, our practice evolves, our modality evolves, our community evolves, and just not getting stuck in this is the way it's always been, so this is the way that it needs to be. Plenty of room for creativity. So for me, that was one of the biggest things. And I'm also feeling called to share my intuition, and my intuitive journey eventually led me to shadow work with hypnosis. And so that was also really, really important to me, because I think one thing that happens in the spiritual community, the hypnosis community is we want to jump sometimes to the ethereal, the metaphysical, the connection. And we can even sometimes give our power away to that and to our understanding of a higher power. Maybe they even looking at that as like, that's where the power is, not within, you know. And so with shadow work, I think that like turning that inward and starting with like, what's going on in your current life? What's going on in your emotional body? What's going on with the trauma that you've gone through, you know, as a child, and getting back to that inner child. That was also really important as well, that sometimes, not all the time, sometimes we need to really root down in current life, emotion, energy, what's going on right now, before we're ready, you know, to dive into past lives and working with spirit guides. So that was really important to me as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you added that, because it was just such a natural fit with what was really important to me, was being able to have a training where people understand how to deal with like malevolent shadow energies. People might call them darker energies, fractured energy. I didn't learn that stuff until I did my second training. And in the grand scheme of my career, it was like the first 3 months of my career, I didn't know that stuff. But I think I think it's a little dramatic to say it like this, but I do think it's a little negligent to train someone to operate one way, past life regression, hypnosis, in these other realms, and not teach them how to protect themselves. So not only what you said about like the energetic protection of like working with clients in this way, but like protecting themselves in the sense of like psychic attacks, earthbound spirits, that sort of thing, because our clients come in and they do have entities, and it might be an earthbound, it might be a extraterrestrial that shows up in the session. And even though I truly believe that we never get more than we can handle in these situations as a facilitator, not as a life lesson, but we can never get more than we're meant to handle. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be uncomfortable and scary. So why not train people how to protect themselves? I don't need to train everybody in every single way on every single type of malevolent energy out there. I wouldn't even know where to begin. That's not my expertise. But I can show people and teach people how to show up in those spaces and be protected and keep themselves safe, and like clear the space, and teaching others just like really what's going on. The human is the most powerful entity in the third dimension. So just knowing our power, knowing how to use that power, I think is so needed. And to wait, you know, until someone's ready to do a level 2 training, I think it's missing a big piece of the foundation, which is how to keep each other safe, how to keep us safe. And because I truly believe that even these darker, malevolent, scarier energies deserve the opportunity to be released into the light. They don't have to, but I think it's really great to let them know what's up. Sometimes they don't even know why they're stuck or whatever. So it's not only like good for Earth and humanity to like lighten and send more of these energies to the light to be transmuted into a higher frequency, but it's like something that we need as people, and as people leading clients in these realms, like double we need it. So that was really, really important to me that we added that in there. And your shadow work is just, it's such a perfect dovetail, which I feel like is just how this training goes for you and I, where it's like, oh, that fits perfect with this, easy. Because you're like moving inward and like examining inward, and like the entity release, and just really showing up in those spaces in what I lovingly referred to as the dark arts, J.K. Rowling. Being able to show up in that space, knowing your full power, is like, we got to do it. Like, it's negligent to not know how. These ghosts aren't necessarily as scary as they're trying to get our attention with, which is sometimes the case. But anyway, so much compassion to be had there for every single person involved, the entity, the client, the facilitator. I'm really passionate about it. So I was adamant about adding that in there. And then of course, just like the business piece, everyone I know of who was in my trainings with me are not doing hypnosis currently. And I don't know what's going on in their interior life, but from my point of view, sure looks like they got stopped up at the business portion of it. So I wouldn't have been able to create a training and then just be like, and here's the hill you'll probably die on. Good luck. So just kind of like a little bit of help up that hill if you want it. And that's the thing too, is like all of that information is really custom. It's on a foundational level. So it's really customizable to you. I'm not just teaching you how I did my stuff. I'm going to share that. Sarah's going to share that, but we're also more so, again, that foundation of like what's out there and what works for you.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you pointed out, Gina, that it was like, first you had to get level 1 and get good at that. And then you're ready for level 2 and then 3. And it's like, that's part of the problem.
Agreed.
I mean, not just in the hypnosis world, but like the world, right? Like that is knowledge hoarding. It's hierarchical. It's just not helpful. It's really outdated. And I think that it's not that like you're a better hypnotist when you're ready to think about entity removal, right? It's like it's all weaved together. It's all information that's empowering and helpful. And I don't think that we should be knowledge hoarding and making it this leveled thing. And so that's something I'm really proud of with our training. And that doesn't mean that we won't offer continuing education in the future, but it isn't this like leveled thing where first you're a baby and then you've grown and now you've graduated and all of this. Each student brings a wealth of wisdom on day 1. Each student brings life experience, different career backgrounds, other modalities, and we all learn from one another. And I'm really proud to say that that's weaved into our training.
Yeah, I am really, really proud of that for sure. And along those lines of, well, first I'll come back to along the lines of evolution, because there's one more thing I want to say there. But one more thing before we move on is the intuition piece. Something else I wanted to hit home was like another reason why I've heard so many hypnotists say I don't do that anymore. I think it's so interesting, but I'm not a facilitator or hypnotist anymore. I don't see clients anymore. Is because of the tricky situations. Like I've had people say, what do you do when the client's stuck? I got so sick of being so nervous about that and I thought I wouldn't say this to these people because this sounds like this wouldn't land well with those people. It would sound offensive, and I don't mean to be offensive. But if I'm here as the facilitator, asking the client to show up, get weird, trust your intuition. When I say, are you inside or outside? And you go, I don't know. And I go, yes, you do. Trust your intuition. Just what's coming to mind right now. And then they do it. Well, let's give ourselves that advice when these clients are stuck in the black, when these clients are not going anywhere, when these clients are whatever. When a client gets stuck, it's not the end. It's like just a shift. It's a small technique. And something that's so wild to me is like the handful of hypnotists who have shared with the consent of the client of a client, quote, stuck in the black. The client was in the black for less than 2 minutes. This is bullshit. We're facilitating these sessions. Someone is a little nervous, not used to connecting with their intuition, and gets a little tripped up, and the session's over. Like, we can all do better. No one's going to leave that feeling good. And it's a tiny technique to move through it. And one way we do that is relying on our skills and our intuition, exactly what we're asking the client to do. So that's one of the things in like the exploration and the foundation piece of it, like those two kind of weave together at the point of like what I call tricky scenarios. And we give scripts to our clients for the life between lives, when they typically get stuck. Here's what you say when they get stuck. Same with the past life regression, same with the spirit guide session, all of these things, shadow work. And so we're covering even the tricky situations, which it blows my fucking mind that people don't teach this stuff. And again, it's that knowledge hoarding. I know this, you don't. I'm above you. And it's gross. It's outdated. Let's all step into the age of Aquarius. Okay. So the evolution piece, I want to say, if it was a method created 20 or more years ago in hypnosis, it is out of date. I am saying it. I believe it. I think humans have changed. If you've been doing hypnosis since then, you have changed. Your clients have changed. And so I'm not saying those methods don't work, but what I'm saying is like there are more efficient, helpful ways to access a past life, access your spirit guides, access your higher self, access your ancestors, loved ones on the other side, access the space, the life between lives. And that's what we're doing here, is like taking that and bringing it to the next level. We're making it more efficient. We're dovetailing it all together into like a beautiful wing that you can soar on. Everything that I'm teaching you, I've done 5 hypnosis trainings, and it's not all of it, but like the hands-on healing training, like all of this stuff is like things that I've learned and have been put in here. This is like at least 3 trainings in one. This is for sure the NAF level 1, 2, and 3. I mean, I don't want to say that out loud, but like my level 1, 2, and 3 is in here. But here's the thing is like, I have so much love for Dolores Cannon, Lois J. Wetzel, Michael Newton, Alan Chips, like Winifred Lucas. I've got so much love for them. I don't have a problem with them. I love their techniques. I've learned a ton from their techniques. But what I'm saying is like people have evolved, and we're going to continue to evolve. Neither Sarah or I are just like hanging our hats on like this one technique. It's about who are we teaching? What is this world that Sarah and I both currently work in and are both currently clients in? And just really, I guess what I'm saying is like, even though I believe we are updated and evolved training, I have mad love for everyone that we came from. And when I think of just like 30 years from now, I hope they don't look at us like we're so far and behind. And they won't, because hypnotic arts is evolving. That's a big part of it. It's like Sarah and I not only teach leading with your intuition, but that's like literally how we live. Both of us live like that. I know Sarah personally. I know she lives like that. And so with that in mind, like we're always going to grow and evolve. And we always, after every training cohort, talk to the people, get their feedback, see what we can tighten up. What are Sarah and I learning in our own practices? What can we add to the training? And we have so many ideas for the future and are really excited for it. And so when I say that, Sarah, what pops in your mind of like, what are you most excited for in terms of evolving this training in the future?
So I remember sitting at the very last day of my hypnosis training, and I was thumbing through different pamphlets for different hypnotist organizations. I didn't do the math, but it was somewhere in the 90% range, where it was all white people and mostly men in the leadership roles. And I remember asking my trainer, like, what's the deal with this? Like, are you aware of any people of color that's, leading the way? Can you point me in any towards any resources, written or created by people of color? And I wasn't able to walk away feeling very confident around that. And so I think we've taken a step in our history and clinical portion of the training where we're acknowledging this gap And we're also acknowledging that hypnotist has been around, or hypnosis as an altered state of consciousness, trance work has been around since humans have been around. So I'm very proud that we really acknowledge what came before we actually started calling it hypnotherapy. The trance work and the sleep temples, even yoga philosophy, things that were trance and were altered state of consciousness long before white men coined hypnotherapy. So I'm very proud that we're acknowledging it. I'm very proud that we're aware and conscious of it. And I'm really excited to continue building resources, uplifting voices, people of color, supporting, and hopefully pulling in students as well. And, I know on our horizon is offering scholarships for people of color. And then hopefully through that, being able to then support and point people in their direction in the future. So I'm really excited about making that more intentional as we go.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. Same. The history I got was whatever, the last 150 years of white guys talking about hypnosis, essentially. I completely agree with that. I'm really looking forward to that. Just pulling in more information about trance, the history of trance, what we did in this altered state as humans throughout millennia. And in terms of also pulling in more humans, just the community of it. So we're about to run our second cohort of this training. So we don't have a huge community now, but it is a community. It's a small supportive community. But that's one of the things that I guess another thing I came out of training and was just who are the people doing this? And at the time I was in my late 30s. And I just remember being who are the people doing this under 65? I got love for people over 65, but I was anybody my age doing it the way I am. And so just to attract many different people of many different backgrounds and ages and job and work backgrounds, and how people are using hypnosis going forward, because it can be combined with so many things. So that would be the big thing, is the community of it, not only for referrals, because right now my referral list is incredibly small. If someone comes and I either can't work with them or feel like I'm not equipped to work with them, to be able to easily to refer someone and to get referrals from other people. So just being able to grow that group and continuing to learn and just practice with other people as that community grows, I think will be really, really exciting.
Man, I just can't wait to see who our next group of students are. I'm just really, really excited for another round of this, and I'd enjoy working with you, Gina.
There it is. That is our episode for today. Again, if you're interested in the Hypnotic Arts Training, it's a small group and we'd love to have you. Click the link in the show notes to learn more about the training. In the meantime, take anything that makes your load feel lighter and just leave the rest.